Thank you. I was just telling our Major General that Jackson, he goes, this is a big event here for, you know, here in the city of Chicago. Other cities don't have it. I said, well, when Alderman Balser puts on an event, it's a Marine event in which the other rest of the armed forces are invited to. So to the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, I want to welcome you to, an Air Force, I want to welcome you to a Marine-sponsored event. Yeah, it's a Marine Corps birthday, yes, but somehow every year is a Marine Corps birthday. First of all, so thank you, but also the truth is, to Alderman Balser, who puts his heart and soul into making sure, God forbid anybody in the city would forget that on whether it's Memorial Day or Veterans Day, we do it right here in the city of Chicago because we owe people who serve their country at least a day in which we not only remember, but a day of respect for them and their families. So thank you for being our conscience. Second, this is the anniversary, 50th anniversary of Vietnam. And it's also, as you know, our president committed to end the war in Iraq, and our troops are coming home. That the surge also, you can give an applause to that for our president. And it is also the time in which our troops now are starting to come home from Afghanistan. And as the president committed, while we have done right over in 2 theaters of war, one of them the longest in American history, it's time to come home and build America. And you build it by building on the shoulders of a great generation. People who volunteered for their country. And I want to stand in the contrast because Alderman Balser said there's every right, let me say this to all the Vietnam veterans. Hold your head up high. Yes, let's be honest, America was divided when you came home. We did not show you the respect. You served your country admirably. Obviously there were politics involved and we know that. And our country has to work with that. But when you think about how our veterans now are coming home and the issues in which, whether it's employment, health care, housing, it was because of the mistakes we made in the past that we learned our lessons and we will never repeat those mistakes. And so the Alderman is right, and I want to echo that. We learned our lesson and we're making it right by our veterans coming home. And now we are not perfect and we have a long way to go to our veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. Stands in stark contrast to what happened to those who came home from Vietnam. It is a country that must say thank you. And I also want to repeat, when you think about the fact that there was, or not repeat, but I want to make a point that I often make, which is we have a volunteer armed forces. In Vietnam we had a draft. Now we've spent the last year talking about what the 1% is. And sometimes we define the 1%, and it was a debate about wealth. I think the true 1% are those who volunteered for their country and served their country, because it's not about wealth the way you define the true 1%. It's about their service to others, and that is what the armed forces is. And so when anybody has a debate about who is and what defines the 1%, it's people like Mr. Johnson, who's now at Fort Pendleton, whose father just gave his life serving also here in the city of Chicago. That is what is defined by 1%. They have served their country's values, their country's principles, and they have done it voluntarily. And it's never about wealth. It is about the wealth on which we all are richer as a country because of their service on behalf of the country's values and its principles. And they all are owed a great deal of respect. And I want to thank every one of them for their presence here today. Second, I want to make note that we today are instituting a Service for Success program. Now, when I was a congressman, I worked on the new GI Bill, which updated our housing and our education, most importantly our education. The Montgomery GI Bill had not been modernized or reformed in over 40 years, and yet we know one thing. College costs had gone up, and our benefits to our returning vets had not, commensurate with the cost. And we updated that, passed, and is now implementing and making sure that from an educational basis, housing basis, our returning veterans are coming home to a whole different contract. And it is a contract, and it's one we're on. And also, because the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were different, it applies to our reserves. And that makes sure it's not just active duty. The reserves who served in a way that was different than they intended. But in that vein and in that spirit, while I could have sit and said I worked in Congress and worked in administration, we did the GI Bill, I wanted to make sure through our service to success we double down on that effort. So 2 things to 3 things we're doing different. 1, if you go to our community colleges as a returning vet, we will add on top of the GI Bill another $1,000 for helping you defer the cost of that education. And second, which is important to me, that is, if you learned a skill, you're going to get credit for it. Meaning if you're a medic, we are not going to reject that lesson. If you were a medic in Helmand Province, those skills, if you learned it and developed those skills there, you get credit at the community college. We don't want you to repeat that course. In fact, you learned a lot more and we can learn from you. 2, if you're a mechanic, and all the other skills that come with what you've done in the armed forces, we will give you credit at our community colleges for that education. Because we have a lot to learn from you, and you have a lot to give to your country back, and you will not have to repeat that, in addition on top of the $1,000. And then third and finally, although it's not part of our service to success but a program, we had talked about it, we have unveiled, we have the first ever housing project for our veterans, because homelessness is a big issue among veterans coming home. It's the first of its kind anywhere in the country. And Major General, we will invite you back when we open it up. And it's one of the about 80 units of housing and for our veterans and their families. And it's free. If you have not seen the drawings, it's on the website. Will be open in about a year from now. It's one of a kind in the country for those efforts. So lastly, let me say one other thing. And I want to say this to all the veterans, regardless of what war, regardless of what generation and background. And that is, at a time when we need to bind our nation together and rebuild its foundations, the spirit and service of our veterans is essential to our country's success. So I'm proud that we have a beautiful day today for a wonderful event that speaks to the spirit of this country and speaks to the spirit of service that every generation, regardless of war, regardless of what conflict, represents. Thank you on behalf of a grateful city and a grateful country. Thank you.
I'd like to acknowledge a few more folks before we continue. There's police, firemen, and paramedics here, our first responders. Would you please thank them, because they do a yeoman's job in protecting our city. I want to acknowledge them and thank all the police, firemen, and paramedics. Special events, I'd like to thank Dave Kennedy and everyone from Special. My commander there, the old Marine, Alderman Ray Suarez. Judge Angela Patron, would you please stand? Her father, Frank, World War II vet. Her mother, Teresa Patron, headed up our Memorial Day parade. Tom Day, of course, you'll be hearing him do taps in a minute. I can't thank Tom enough for everything he's done for us. Thank you, Mayor. I would like to invite our military representatives to join Mayor Emanuel for a wreath-laying presentation to the Memorial Wall in observance of Veterans Day. Yes. Now I'd like to ask everyone to please rise before the 21-gun salute by the United States Army Reserve 814th Military Police Company and taps performed by Thomas J. Day, founder of Bugles Across America. I would like to ask for a moment of silence and respect for those who gave the supreme sacrifice in the defense of our great nation. Thank you. If everyone could please be seated. Before we begin the service songs, I'd like to ask all the Vietnam veterans to please stand. All those who served in Vietnam. At this time, the 85th Army Band will perform the Armed Service Medley to honor all the veterans who are here today. As your service song is played, please rise. the National Guard, the Reserves, and the Merchant Marines. And would all the veterans stand up? You know, I can't be doing all the Marine Corps stuff here. So all the vets stand up. Hoorah! For once, I'm not going to be biased. We'd like to have our benediction, chaplain again.
Who have been and are so generous and without thought of self. But because you will never be outdone in generosity, we ask that you would abundantly bless all those present here today, and all those we have sought to honor at this ceremony, and all those our brothers and sisters far away and in harm's way, so that long after we have parted, your blessing may accompany us all throughout our days, until at last we are reunited, as we hope, in the sight of your divine majesty on the day of eternity. You live and reign forever and ever. Amen.
If we can have the color guard present the colors again as we do our conclude with God Bless America. And now Mr. Rick Murray will do God Bless America.
God bless America, the land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains, through the prairies, through the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains, through the prairie, through the oceans, white with foam. Oh God, God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Before I conclude, I'd like to acknowledge the firemen here holding the American flag, city flag, and a POW flag, and the fireboat out in the Chicago River. This concludes our ceremony. God bless America. Semper Fidelis. And Milton Lee Olive have relatives here, African American, earned the Medal of Honor in Vietnam, and who the park is named after.
Oh, some photos. You never know when you might need one.
How dare you? How dare you?
Long time no see. Have you met Commander Newhouser? He's the head of the Coast Guard.